gosh, where's Fink? Good morning, everybody. I am so sad because usually when I open this with Brian Fink, he has just like the biggest smile and is yelling, and I was so ready for it. If you know Fink, you know how much more energy he has than me for the HR Morning Show. So instead, you're going to get me. Good morning. It is me, and I'm solo hosting the HR Morning Show. This is mine now. It's going to run my way and do everything I want, except for the fact that it won't. So welcome back to the number one spot for all things HR in the morning. And Fink is back. Good morning, Fink.
Thank you, Doodle in the house, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of all ages. It's Brian and Mike. It's
Don't
Mike
ever
and
do
Brian.
that to me again, Fink.
Dude. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to scare anybody. I didn't mean to make Mike think that he was going to be flying the ship alone, like he did.
Need to relax my butthole.
Mike, Mike. For those of you who are just turning in to the HR Morning Show, I'm Brian Fink. This is Mike Peditto, and he is the host of Is This Still a Good Time? A great podcast that not only taps into what's going on in talent acquisition, but really what's happening in the war for talent. And that is a bilateral agreement or a bilateral war where candidates are looking for great opportunities and companies are looking for great talent to take to the next level. Mike, is that a good intro for you?
That was a great intro. Thank you for plugging my podcast. It went a little heavy on pretending the podcast matters and is there to benefit anybody. I often joke about the podcast that, like, it is not the podcast about how to be a better recruiter or how to fill your pipeline by 15% more. It is the podcast for recruiters hanging on by a thread who just want to get together and talk about what recruiting is actually like in 2026 in a world where everybody hates us and expectations are hard. So if that is for you, come tune in. If you are hoping to be a better recruiter and get some tips and tricks, Brian Fink is who you need to be listening to. And
yeah, I love the tips and the tricks. I do the tips and the tricks, right? So, so I'm Brian Fink. I am the managing partner of the Rework Group. We work on all of your MLE, SRE, and SDLC roles. Alan, our producer, was really disappointed this morning. He thought I was going to sing everything out loud and borrow lyrics from songs, but I'm not doing that. Mike, we've got a big show today. It's actually an abbreviated show because Serge, our weatherman, is not with us today. He's got some parental duties that he's got to fulfill. But we do have a great guest coming up with Anna, and we're excited to get in that conversation and really take this thing global. Speaking of global, Mike, did you watch any of that World Cup soccer match stuff? Good?
I actually did watch more than I would have expected. Shout out also to Joe Dowd in the comments, who just wanted to let us all know that he loves my content. Thank you, Joe. I always appreciate that, and we'll always shout somebody out who says that. I did watch it because I was actually in...
You were in the World Cup?
Yeah, I was actually in the World Cup recently. I was playing for Team Italy, who I don't think qualified. But I was actually in England during the World Cup 2 weeks ago, during their game that they were like losing until like the last 2 minutes and then scored 2 goals at the end. And I'm not a huge soccer guy, and you can tell because I call it soccer, but I will say, like, being there during that and like hearing just like the streets explode after like they tied it and then like scored again and people were just like pouring out of the bars, like that was like, okay, I could get into this if I was here. So I watched a couple games. I did have the finals on for the last few minutes over the weekend when I saw league was tied and heading towards overtime. My son was complaining everybody was mad that it was on, but I did watch some soccer.
So wait a minute. You just casually peppered in there that you were doing some traveling to Europe. Mike, you've been going to a lot of conferences lately. You've had a lot of opportunity. Yeah, you're that guy. You're like me and Vanessa Rath. Vanessa Rath in the comments, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of all ages. Vanessa Rath in the house. But you just kind of casually threw that you were hanging out in Europe. Were you at a recruiting festival of sorts?
I was at a few places. I went to RecFest UK. I had never gone before. Decided to sort of make an event and go to it. The reason being is I was actually invited to speak at an event in Tallinn, Estonia that was like 2 days after RecFest UK. Yeah. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go to this, like, why would I not just, to me, like, they're far away. People in Europe are like, what do you mean they're close? You should, that wasn't like a quick thing. I'm like, but for me, obviously, it was. So I was like, well, if I'm going to go over to Europe, I might as well also do RecFest UK that week. So I went for the first time and I got to experience like the original RecFest and the giant Ferris wheel and all the things. And it was a lot of fun. I put together some really fun content. I put a video out there that people seem to really enjoy, where I asked all the British recruiters to do their best American recruiter impression, and had a lot of fun like hearing them not only use some terrible accents, but Dom Joyce may have been the winner of it. For those who know Dom Joyce, who went into his like cowboy Yosemite Sam voice, and was trying to hire a cow wrangler, as he said. And
That's what we
just had
do.
a lot
We
of
hire
fun
cow
making
wranglers.
content
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I am hiring a lot of cow wranglers here.
So, but you jumped from Wreckfest to Estonia, and then you came back here. And last week, you and Joel, you guys were at a conference in Milwaukee.
Yeah, the
What was
Purple
that?
Acorn crew was showing up in a lot of numbers at NACR, which is the National Association of Healthcare Recruiters, and it's it's an event that a lot of people we know have been involved in for years. Aaron has always been a huge part of it. Shout out to Evan and Mike Staffy and Aaron. They've always been a huge part of the NACR event, and it's a recruiting or a festival or conference for a couple of days for healthcare recruiters from around the country. Right, and healthcare recruiting is its own beast, and often a lot of the problems they're dealing with and the red tape and the bureaucracy and sort of just all the things that come with that becomes its own battle. And it also tends to be a industry that is often a little bit behind on some of the technology we talk about and things, and sometimes you have to kind of talk about it a little bit different, because most hospital systems, you can't just roll these tools out without a problem. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Saw some great talks from Kyle Lagunas and Trent Cotton and George Rogers, and Joel and I hosted, and it was really just a great week in Milwaukee, outside of the fact that we were covered in smoke the entire week.
Did Serge have anything to do?
And that's why Serge cannot be here to do the weather report, because he has been causing issues for us from Canada.
You bring up Kyle Lagunas. If I'm not mistaken, I think Kyle is one of the speakers at the upcoming ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit that's going to take place this November in San Diego. Kyle is a big friend of the show, has been very important to our discipline from an analytics standpoint. And when I say an analytics standpoint, I really want to extrapolate that and make that bigger than maybe it actually is. Because for those of you who don't know who Kyle Lagunas is, he is one of the most strategic analysts out there, putting together real research about what the future of recruiting, what the future of talent acquisition, what the future of HR really looks like. And he's doing it in a way where you're having aha moments every time you read through one of his perspectives. If you're not following Kyle Lagunas, you need to get on that immediately. Kyle & Co. is where you should go. And he is very insightful. That is a great way to put it, Jalil, about Kyle Lagunas. Also, there are great speakers that are coming up at ERE. I'm excited to meet for the first time Daniel Monahan, who has been instrumental in our field, whether at Amazon or at Uber, really building out widespread talent acquisition cultures and best practices. So, Mike, you made that comment about listen to Brian if you want to be able to 10x what you're doing from a recruiting standpoint. Listen to Danielle if you want to know how to really move the needle, whether it's sourcing, whether it's recruiting, whether it's employer branding. Brian Cheney will be there for employer branding, and just some really big friends of the HR Morning Show will be in San Diego in November for ERE. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and just get yourself to conferences in general, right? ERE is coming up. It's a great one. We talk about this all the time, right? They are just, there's such a needed thing among the community. We talked about my podcast now. It wasn't about learning, but it was about sort of just like talking about recruiting and the struggles. But the question I ask at the end of every episode, I asked you were on it, is how do you cope with what it's like? How do you build community in this world where kind of everyone hates us and it's getting so hard to do a lot of this work? And the answer we almost all have is like events like this. Right.
Well,
so whether it's NACR Milwaukee or ERE.
So I want to double click on that for a second about community. Community is important, but you can only have community where you have trust and you have open sharing. And I want to shout out Steve Levy for a quick second, because Steve really years ago tried to put together a body that would oversee, not just like not try to wrangle speakers, but try to oversee their content and make sure it passed muster, and that it wasn't just kind of spurious or off the cuff conversations. It's great to have an off the cuff conversation. I think that a lot of that realness happens in the hallways at ERE or at NACR or at RecFest when people are waiting in line for the Ferris wheel. The true reality of it is that as a community, we've got to police our community, and we've got to make sure that we've got a firm understanding of where we're going and the responsibility that we have to take others, that next generation with us. So that's what I've got. All right, Mike, do you want to hit some headlines?
Should we hit some headlines? Let's do it.
Let's hit some headlines.
Have some related headlines today, and at the crux of them is employees are starting to ask what the heck is going on with these layoffs and how people are doing it. So the story came out. This is still kind of breaking and unfolding. So as we talk about this story, we're gonna understand there's a lot to figure out and know, and nobody knows exactly what happened yet. But 26 Meta employees have sued Meta after their round of 8,000 layoffs a couple months ago, basically saying that they were on protected leave, anything from medical leave to parental leave, and were let go without the neutral review that the law requires. The claim with this story and with these layoffs is Meta used different things like what they just call like internal AI systems, which means like no one's ever going to know what happened. But then also they were using keystroke and activity monitoring data and AI token usage and things like that to determine like who's doing more work, who do we need to keep around. And this would, of course, if that's how they were making these decisions, hurt people who were on medical leave or protected leave or were not supposed to be doing work while they're on this. So this is the lawsuit coming. We don't know what happened yet. Obviously, Meta, of course, is saying this is frivolous, throw it out, as of course they would. And we don't want to jump on any side and say they're right yet. But I know what side I tend to believe less when stories like this happen from a personal level. But I also think this is big because this is yet another disparate impact lawsuit happening with HR and AI and the tools that we're using. Disparate impact is going to become the hot term in all these AI lawsuits. It is the term behind the Workday lawsuit. And the idea, if you don't know disparate impact, I hope everyone in HR listening does. But just in case, you stumbled on this show, the idea of disparate impact is essentially saying something negative happening that was not the intended cause, right? So even if the AI was not programmed to be biased against a certain type of person, against a certain race, or against people on leave, if what the AI is doing is causing a certain group that is protected to be impacted more than others, even if by accident, it is still responsible for what it is doing. And that is where disparate impact comes in. So this is another disparate impact happening in the HR and AI world. I get the sense this is number 3 out of 1,000 we're about to see. But what are your thoughts when you hear this immediately?
Mike, I immediately wonder where the human in the loop is, right? Was there somebody who was kind of checking the program or checking the keystrokes, if you will, to make sure that this data was accurate? And where were the safeguards, right? If you're on FMLA and you're a protected class, shouldn't there be some kind of AI to stop the AI from running amok?
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of what's at the heart of so many of these lawsuits, right? Is AI making decisions on its own? Where is it learning to do it? How is it doing it, right? And that's so much of this is the black box AI. And of course, Meta just says internal AI tools, which is essentially just code for we'll never tell you and you'll never know what's happening with these tools. And that is what's going to make the lawsuit part very hard, because what can you prove versus just sort of think is happening.
He said think, not think what is happening. Yeah. Think what's happening.
What do you think about what is happening? As I said, until 5th grade.
Until 5th grade. So
yeah.
So about this, is there any kind of independent auditing that takes place in California to make sure that these AIs aren't running amok?
I don't know. Is there? I mean, probably not. You know, it. What I think is interesting with all these is like AI has moved so fast, right? And we're seeing everyone finally slow down, which is actually one of my big takeaways from RecFest, and it ties this when I went to RecFest UK, is I've been going to recruiting events now for several years in a row. And 3 years ago, it was like AI's coming. 2 years ago, it was like AI, all the things. Get AI. Here's where you need AI. This is the first year I'm hearing at events like, oh, wait, maybe we need to slow down. Maybe AI is not doing everything we promised. Maybe AI is not doing everything right. We still need it. We're still going to use it. But should we finally start asking questions? So I think that like if there isn't, I think it's going to come, right? I think that's what like these lawsuits, even if they don't get found like liable, right? Let's say Workday isn't found guilty, Meta isn't found guilty, right? Let's just say they win their lawsuits. You would hope at a minimum what comes out of it is like, okay, well, how do we start to prevent these things? What kind of committees can be in place? What kind of laws and policy? Like we haven't had time to figure any of that out from a legal perspective at the speed these companies like Meta have been moving. And we're just kind of seeing that raise its head right now.
Yeah, but it's a very different story that's being told, right? Like managers using dashboards should have been caught, but the algorithm chose like I just think that there's got to be more oversight, and maybe that's not at the HR level. Maybe that's some kind of governance level for like a chief data officer.
Yeah. And that's the issues right now is we don't know, right? So like maybe there was human oversight, right? Maybe this is 26 employees who were caught up in a coincidence and there was oversight and Meta can sit down in court and show it and say, here's how we did it. Like that's just the thing is like right now we don't know. And that's why I joked at the beginning, like I know who I believe. I don't know that I trust that Meta did everything like by the book and perfectly because I just don't
Well, I
think
mean,
that's
it is 26 people out of 8,000 just to play devil's advocate
sure.
here and to take Meta's side for a second. And by no means am I shitting on anybody who has suffered a layoff or had to be part of a selection committee for a layoff, right? But like 26 people out of 8,000, is that statistically significant?
Well, so the question becomes like, are they protected from these layoffs, right? If
They
the
should be
layoffs are being
protected. Yeah.
determined because of this stuff, did they not get a neutral review, which is like the term used in here, like an accommodation neutral review? So it's not about like, oh, was it too many people or what is that? It was I reviewed for a layoff the same way using these algorithms that an employee who was not under protected leave was reviewed. And that's where like that disparate impact comes in. Rosona Galvez gave us in the comments like a great full definition of disparate impact. But that's where that comes in, right? The like, did I get a neutral review or is I reviewed the same way as Fink, who's been plugging away and using all of his AI tokens and like doing a ton of work while I'm on protected leave? So it's less about the number than that. And there's a story in this article about an employee who disclosed a serious health condition, disability, and then was essentially like discouraged from taking the leave and warned like this will likely hurt you in like the upcoming layoffs if you take the leave. So I think like it comes down to things like that.
That's a setup, man. That is such a setup.
Yeah. And well, that's what the lawsuit's about. And that's why I was like, we have to see what happens. We don't know. It's a news story. We can't determine who did what at this point. But like my big thing when I see these stories is just like, yep, I've been saying for a while now, as have a lot of people, these lawsuits, it's going to be like floodwaters, right? They're just going to open up the gate and they're all going to come pouring in over the next few years.
Well, I think it was you or Joel Alge, who occasionally shows up to host this show with us. Joel, we love you. That's not a dig. It's I love you. Joel made a comment about layoffs and how we're coming into a cycle where it's just perpetual cycle of layoffs. Mike, what are you seeing on that?
Yeah. I mean, we all see that, right? That's just like layoffs used to be like a sign of something bad, right? They
Yeah,
used to
no.
be like, oh, a company did layoffs. That company's in trouble. It was their last resort. And like it would happen to you once in like your career, maybe. But layoffs now it's a yearly cycle, right? I mean, even less than yearly, but like, when they're coming at like every company and nobody cares, right? You get a couple bad headlines for a week or two and people complain on LinkedIn and like the stories come in the news. and then the next one happens, right? It's like everything else in our news cycle. It's just like something else comes and like we forget about the last thing. Like how mad were we all at Block 6 months ago? And when was the last time you've heard someone complain about Block since then? Right? It's just like, remember when Amazon set like the record for like the largest layoff in American history, and like 2 weeks later, Google was like, we can top that, right? And then Meta was like, we can top that. Yeah, like it's just become such a common thing that like we just view it as normal now. It has become normalized to that, and that sucks. Right, I've been through several of them, but let's even tie it in then, right? Because we're talking about this. Let's get to our second headline, because I mentioned it's going to be tied together. At Google, right, employees are trying to fight back a little bit. 4,500 Google employees signed a petition demanding layoff protections. Now, like you said, earlier, you're not trying to like shit on anybody who has gone through layoffs and sort of had to struggle with this, and I've been through multiple. Right, it's my origin
Survivors
story
Guild, all the different.
Yeah. Like I've gone through my own layoffs. I've organized layoffs. I've been on both sides of them. Like it sucks on every single side. But we also know that like a petition like this doesn't mean anything, but it is nice to see like people trying and sort of doing things. And it's like you talked about with like, is there oversight? Are there committees? And this is probably how that starts. This petition itself, it's probably as powerful as a change.org petition that doesn't actually like cause anything, no matter how many people sign it. But they are starting to demand that Google have conditions and security to do their best work. Again, there's no teeth to it, but it is nice to see people finally maybe saying we've had enough of just like letting it be normal without any kind of pushback.
But hold on, like I feel like, do we need this if we already have the WARN Act? And for those of you who aren't familiar with the WARN Act, it's a worker adjustment and retraining notification that requires businesses to provide a 60-day advance notice before executing a mass layoff, a plant closure, or a relocation. They are, in California, they're noticeably more strict than federal regulators, and they even apply it to small businesses. And Google is not a small business, right? Like this applies to any employer that is employing 75 people or more with the preceding 12 months. And when it affects 50 or more employees at a single site within a 30-day period, there's a WARN notice. So are these people asking for additional protections that the WARN notice already affords in a 60-day kind of notice period, or are they asking to be guaranteed a job?
They're essentially being asked to be guaranteed. They're essentially asking to be guaranteed protections during a layoff. So, right, the WARN is about like it's why it's called it. It's essentially a warning that these layoffs are coming, which we all know also like doesn't hold too many people.
Elon.
Like I've worked in plenty of startups in my career, right? The WARN Act means nothing in that world for the most part. And so it's not this like universal protection. But so this protection is more about, so some of the things that say like, we're demanding Google workers have conditions and security to do their best work. And what they're asking for is like guaranteed severance if you work at Google. And what they say is an end to performance quotas. The option of taking severance is extended paid leave. They are asking for things along that line. Apparently, I've never worked at Google. I've never worked at a FANG company. I've never wanted to, never applied, never tried. It's not who I am. Like, I know I would not fit in there. But, what they are saying is that, like, at Google especially, like, colleagues are essentially pitted against each other every day, like, not sure how much longer to have the job. Like, performance and quotas are essentially used as a, like, hey, we're going to do layoffs now. Like we talked about, it's like the yearly tradition. Here's the number you have to be at to like feel like you're safe from layoffs. Like those are the things that they're sort of just like, this can't exist here.
Well, why don't they strike out against top grading, right? Like, that was a favorite tool of Jack Welch when he was at General Electric, and how he kind of hollowed out the business.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of ways to go, right? And it's why I kind of talked about like this petition itself. It's not going to change anything, right? Like Google is not going to say, 4,500 employees signed this. Like, okay, we're going to rethink the way we do layoffs to appease our shareholders and like promise severance, right? It's just kind of like there are no teeth to this, whatever. You could write it whatever way you wanted. But again, is this the start, right? Does this happen at smaller companies? Does this don't let me say the word that sets off right everyone into a tizzy, right? Like
Union.
when does
Union.
unionizing start to like come into play? Like, is this the start? Is Google going to turn union? Probably not. But these are just sort of those things that like in history, when we look at changes that have happened or things that matter, it typically starts with one story where people are like, well, so what? Like, what's that story matter? And again, this is one of those, let's revisit it in 2 years and 3 years and see what's happened. But similar to the Meta lawsuit, it's kind of like okay, so now we're starting to see some other side. We're starting to see what workers do in these situations. And I think that's where this stuff like matters more than like, will this specific petition change anything?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conversation. There's especially a lot of conversation. Oh, I like this. Hey, is the AT? Let's bring this up here.
Let's get way off topic here.
This is hot. Is the ATS a bridge or a barrier to hiring today? And will AI fix candidate job matching from the HR side, or must the candidate rely on AI agents to beat the gatekeepers? Okay, so there's a guy, right? There's always a guy, and there's a gal, right? They're a gang of people, and I think that we probably should have them on the show sometime really soon to answer this question. And that's the team at Match 2. That is the team that's headed. Oh man, I totally just forgot. I totally just blanked on his name. He was he was in charge. He built Zap, which was a recruiter tool that we were able to use. Why can I not think of his name? Right, him and Aline that are running Match 2, but they're a service that lays on top of an ATS that says you may not be a fit for this role, but you could be a fit for another role at another company that's in the Match 2 ecosystem. I really wish that I could think of their name right now, but apparently I did not take enough of my go-go juice or creatine.
Okay. You weren't ready this morning to plug them fully.
No, I wasn't. I was not ready to talk about Match 2, but I mean that's what you get when you get a wild card question like that, right?
Yeah. Even back to like the first part of this question, right? Because this question is coming, I'm going to assume I know nothing about the person who asked it. It's coming from a job seeker who I don't think fully understands what an ATS is, right? And that becomes like a whole different conversation down its line. So I think the quick answer, right, to a lot of this is it is neither a bridge or a barrier to hiring today. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of what an ATS is. Right, I'm going to assume, like I said, the question didn't come from someone in HR. If it did, like, please, let's step outside of here, like off the show, and talk about how you need to know a little bit more about your ATS system. But as a job seeker, if that's where that question is coming from, it's neither of those things. It is a digital system that companies use to hire. That is like asking if Salesforce is a bridge or a barrier to making a sale. It is. It's not doing most of the things that you think it's doing. It is simply a system that helps us on the hiring side continue a process and get it moving, to store our resumes and our jobs and our interviews and move things through and get it to the website. There is a lot of misinformation out there. We're not going to spend this episode talking about that a ton. But Brian,
maybe you should do that for episode 99, right? Like we're right around the corner. Maybe tee that up and have a candidate experience focused episode.
You can also go find a guy named Realistic Recruiting, Mike Peditto, who has a ton of content on the internet about how ATS systems work and showing the inside of them. Go follow some experts who talk about this really well all the time. People like Amy Miller, who started a new job recently, right after leaving Amazon and went to a small startup company and has been publicly like demoing and shopping for and looking for an ATS system at this company. Sam Strom, I think is his name. Sam Strom. He's like an ex-Google recruiter. He has a video on YouTube where he literally just like shows himself using an ATS system to like look through resumes and go through like this content is out there. The best way I can answer this to keep us on track and keep going, I think, is to say like, listen to the people using the tools, ask them how they're using it, see what they're doing, rather than the people who have something to sell you based on what they say the tools are doing,
Clickbait. Yeah.
and that is the best advice I can give in a short
Yeah.
amount of time.
So real quick, Doug Berg was the gentleman that I was trying to remember at Match 2. Doug Berg had Zap. He sold Zap to Indeed. You may want to follow Doug for his content because Doug really has spoken very judiciously and accurately about what takes place behind the veiled curtain of the ATS and how that information can be transcended or recommunicated to candidates. All right.
Let's get to a guest. We have ranted and raved.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome sauce. Is there a caller? Is there somebody?
Caller.
Hey, caller. Hey, Anna. Good morning.
Hi. Hi, Brian. Morning. It's afternoon already in Europe, you know?
Yeah. So, Anna, real quick, thanks for joining the show. I'm really excited to get into a little bit of, well, I guess maybe this is a recurring theme because Mike was just at RecFest UK, but to really open up to a broader conversation about compliance, about candidates, and about HR as it stretches from the US or really across the globe. Anna, by way of introduction, would you share with everyone who you are, what you're doing, and where you're joining us from, since it is a good afternoon?
Good afternoon. Yeah, and good morning, everyone. I wish I was there earlier to talk about football. I was at the match when England played Panama in New York, so Mike, probably it's not the match that you attended, but it was England. Yeah. Sorry, I joined late and I need to talk about compliance, but this is what I do, and happy to share. I'm based in Czech Republic. I live in Prague. This is the small country in the center of Europe, but in the center of Europe, so we can cover many countries. And my co-founder of Corbey is based in Amsterdam, Netherlands. The team is obviously across Europe. What we do, we are called Corbey. We are a small company, startup, 1 year old, and we automate HR operations and employment compliance across Europe. We cover European countries so far, but hearing the previous discussion and reading the headlines, I wish we were in the US already by now, because this is exactly what we do. We are, with our AI tool, we help companies to stay within the compliant field and automate what is possible to automate, but also prevent mistakes in the area of employment law and compliance.
So really, you take all the complex subjects like legal and you make them and you simplify them. You don't make them less complex. You just make them where they're digestible and remove some of those legal burdens and systems dependencies that are, for lack of a better phrase, a time suck for everybody.
Yeah, my co-founder and I, we spent many years in HR. I spent 20 years in HR before I founded the company, and I know the pain. So it takes so much time and resources of HR teams to answer employees' questions, search for information, pull data together, cross-check the data in one system and another system. It's getting better and better in terms of automation, of course, but still there is a lot that can be done with support of AI and automation, and also the feature that we have and why we are different from other companies that are providing, for example, automations for generally corporate functions, is that we have the layer of knowledge of employment regulations. So we are connected directly to the databases, to the legal, to the source of truth. So this is the parliamentary newsletters or any other places where government publish the bills and then the laws, and we track them. So we capture what is changing in terms of legislation, and we have the data set which is manually verified with human experts, and we allow our AI assistant for HR to use only this set of data. So we don't allow it to search at I don't want to name any platforms, but Reddit probably is not the best source of information about employment compliance. So yeah, we use what is verified, and thanks to that, we are able, to guide in the protected field.
So, excuse my naivety, but like when I think of the countries in the European Union, I think there's just like one set of laws. But are there different minimum wages in Poland, or like in Germany, or how does that work in the Czech Republic? Is this something that Corbey can help me to understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we have like European Union. It's like 27 countries, and we cover these countries and the UK. All of these countries have different employment regulations. For example, we've been talking about people on like protected categories of people,
Sure.
people on parental leaves or sick leaves. You can have, like in Europe, you can have, for example, maternity leave from 12 weeks, maternity plus parental, which is, well, maybe more generous than in the US, but still similar, up to 3 years in Czech Republic or Estonia. Yeah. This is
Sign me up for that. I mean, well, I'm not looking at that as time off. I mean, anybody who's a parent knows that there are no days off. NDO, there are no days off. But I'm like, it would have been really interesting to have spent that kind of time growing and maturing with my daughter. And I just think about that. So Anna, please continue. I didn't mean to deride the conversation.
No, we have, like, if you are curious, and anybody who is curious, we have on our platform, like the knowledge base, we start with it is called country comparison. Like we compare basic employment regulations country by country in the European Union. So you can see what are, like, for example, how probation periods look like across the countries, overtime, termination rules, PTO, etc. And there is another new regulation which is called EU pay transparency. This is about fair pay across women and men. So this is also what we are tracking, but this is just the basic thing. And again, we are capturing all the changes in the regulation. At average, it's like roughly 30 changes per country per year, starting from the change of the minimal wage, which is different country to country and changes every year. And then there are different changes, for example, in social security, in pension, in regulation of workers' representation, like Works Council, trade unions that were discussed. So if US is heading towards the protection of employees similar to Europe, this is probably you'll have the same state by state, but hopefully not.
Yeah, I well, 50 states, 50 different jurisdictions. It can be, we sometimes have to make sure that people, quote unquote, can be employed in those states, and that they're set up in terms of oh man, I am zonked this morning, right? Like, I promised I got 12 hours. Well, no, I did not get 12 hours of sleep. That was a false promise. Anna, you mentioned that somebody can go to the website and that they can use the tool. I don't have to sign up for this initially. Like, I can just be clumsy American who didn't get enough sleep last night and work my way through this? Or is there a bigger, better, less free version of this? What's going on with that?
So now it's absolutely free. So since we launched, this tool is free, and it is free till 1st of August. And then $25 per month, or $215 per year.
Okay, so what would you say to somebody like myself that is working with Joel Alge, and we're trying to deploy workforces in Europe, like in Germany? Like, how would we use the tool? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, we have the knowledge base, which is like get yourself familiar with the regulation of Germany, comparing to other countries. Maybe you would like to choose between Germany and another country. in Europe, and you want to compare what are the regulations, what is the usual cost of labor, what are the social contributions. So this is the tool that can help you choose or study what are the rules country by country. This is first. Then we have AI assistant that helps you to navigate through the employment law. And you can basically chat as with ChatGPT or with Gemini or with Claude, but it is restricted with the data set that we are using, and it is restricted with the questions about employment law. So
there's a vector database that goes to it.
Yeah.
There's something that deals with the RAG modeling. All right, so wow, where did this come from? I mean, I see the problem, but like, you've been around for a year. You probably have a lot of growing pains in a year. How did you decide what you were going to work on versus what you weren't going to work on?
Yeah, since we launched, we pivoted twice. And initially we thought that we'll stop at the knowledge base. And this is something what is needed, but then very quickly we realized that first nobody needs just the knowledge. Well, somebody needs just the knowledge, but companies are not ready to pay for that. But what companies can pay for is the full stack of automation. So this is the automation. You don't want just the knowledge, you want it to be automated. You don't need just to know that something is changing. You don't need just to know that in Germany, where you, for example, as an American company with affiliate in Germany, where you have 15 people, minimum wage is changing. You want it automated. So you want the system to flag for you that, hey, you have the list of people who will be below the minimum wage as of, for example, 1st of January 27. Would you like me to increase their salary in the system and prepare salary letters and communication to the managers? So if you then, above the knowledge base, if you set up the automation platform and connect it with your company system, and this is something that is built above your HRS, above your ATS, about your Confluence or whatever knowledge base you are using. So this is the tool that connects through API to multiple systems that company is using, and then you can chat. So we have the interface for HR, but we prefer it to communicate through Slack or Teams. So it's just one, entry point. Of course, you have like your control panel, but for example, you as HR can have the updates about the regulations. You can ask to check the data or pull the data for you. But what is essential is it also communicates to employees and managers. So you don't need to spend time to just provide data to the employees, or you don't need to spend time as HR initially explaining team leaders or people managers that you can't just fire people. And there are some processes and restrictions that are used. And for example, if I'm as a manager, I have, like performance issue with my direct report, I can go and ask, what is the process? What should I do? So when I come to HR, I am already prepared and I know the basics, and my HR business partner doesn't need to spend half an hour explaining the basic rules.
Love that. Anna, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And if people want to learn more about Corbey and about how maybe to use the tool in the free version between now and August 1st, where do they go?
What's the URL?
So it's Corbey.ai. I will send the link in the chat, and you can book time with us there. And if you go to the website, and you can either book a demo or get started. So if you click on Get Started, you will you'll find yourself at the knowledge base.
Okay, so that's Corbey.ai, and wow, I really time just flew. I really appreciate you making time for us today and making sure that we stay compliant and knowledgeable when we're expanding into the European Union.
Great, happy to help. And yeah, Corbey.ai. I've sent it to you, Brian, so maybe you can share it with the rest. Thank you. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me.
All right. And I want to make sure we thank our sponsor today, Talent Tech PR, and Evan White with that beautiful face staring at us right there. We don't know the video today, but if you've watched the show before, you know the Evan White song. Nobody in this industry knows how to make people pay attention to the things that you are trying to do or be seen than like Evan does. And that is not a tagline from him. That is just someone who is at events and sees what Evan's doing and has seen him and Talent Tech PR at work and the great things that they do at a lot of these HR events and just around the industry. So thank you to Evan and Talent Tech PR for sponsoring today. We also got Joel in the comments. We made jokes earlier about how he didn't show up to host. I don't even know if he's still in here. He probably posted and ghosted and is long gone since he wrote that comment. But Joel, I have hosted the HR Morning Show, I don't know, maybe a dozen times now, and you have never been here for any of them. So we miss you. You're great. Wherever you are this morning, we hope you're happy. But one day you and I should host this show together, just like we hosted the NACR conference last week in Milwaukee together to tie it back to the beginning.
Awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, this has been a really interesting conversation today around compliance, around retention, and also, ironically, one subject we didn't touch on was employer branding. And Mike, I almost can't believe that we didn't talk directly about employer branding with all you do with your content and with all the content that's out there that's kind of posting on employers and people are telling their stories on LinkedIn. What do you think? Do you think that there's a Joel is still here? Okay, Joel.
Here. I apologize. Joel did not post and ghost. He's watching but not hosting us this morning.
Yeah. So about that, how do you think brands are supposed to respond to layoffs or some of these lawsuits that are taking place?
Hard.
Do you think they address it, or what's the crisis management here?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on company size for one, right? Like I have spent a lot of time, like I said, I've never been in FANG, but I've been at the 40-person company that had to lay off 10 people. Right, and that devastates that kind of company, right? And I've had to kind of manage, the conversations that happen and the survivor's guilt, like you mentioned, and just sort of the lack of emotional stability, psychological safety that people feel at work is the term I was looking for when that happens. We've talked about it being normalized, so I do think there is something about at Meta now. I think if you're a Meta employee, now again, I don't work there, but I think if you're a Meta employee, you go into that job knowing at this point, like, I'm probably well paid. It's going to look good on my resume, but this place is not going to be stable forever, and they're going to just make cuts at a whim whenever they want to invest in something new. I hope that's sort of what you think going in there, because that's probably the case. So I think there's less managing needed at a place like Meta at this point. It's kind of like, you know what you're getting when you come and work for Zuck. Not that that's the right attitude to have. I just think that's where they've become. But yeah, that matters at companies. It matters for trying to hire in the future. I've dealt with this at small companies where we did layoffs and it got known because like people got laid off, and then we're hiring, right? And then you get asked like, well, how are you hiring when you just did these layoffs and you're hiring for a different skill set or whatever it might be? Like, that's hard to manage. But unfortunately, I just think it's become so normalized that like we talked about with the headlines, people brush by it in 2 weeks and forget you even did it sometimes.
Yeah, I know, but I just sit here and I think about, I forget who said it in politics, that you should never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And and I wonder, man, I have been just like zonked this entire conversation today, right? Like, and I promise I've had my Starbucks, everybody, right? I know that.
Shouts to Jillian Richardson. I have my coffee as well in her mug. I'll give her a shout out for designing this beautiful catchphrase about posting content on LinkedIn.
About posting content, I want to give a shout out to our two sponsors today. Mike, you mentioned Evan and Evan White PR. And I want to think about the reality that we go to all these conferences and audiences are constantly being spoke at, not spoke with. And I think that one of the things that makes Evan's events unique is that it's a conversation that's a deliberate and intentional conversation that takes place outside of the conference, or as a superfluous kind of the icing on the cake that really makes that cake edible at a conference. And then the second person I want to give a shout out to is Calendar PA. I've been using Calendar PA for the past 2 weeks, and I think that my candidates have been really impressed with the question and answer dialogue that goes on there when it comes to scheduling. I think it's made things really efficient and very easy to use. I'm excited that there's a new color scheme that has been launched. You'll have to sign up for Calendar PA to see that it's gone from orange to another brilliant color. But it's more than just color to the conversation. It's driving those conversations between individuals, candidates, and companies alike. So shout out to Calendar PA. Thank you so much for sponsoring us. Mike,
Absolutely.
Is there anything that I missed other than throwing shade at Serge or Joel?
I have another plug for Calendar PA. I have 2 bookmarks right on my bar. I'm staring at right now of Calendar PA bookmarks that I use for booking things. My favorite thing about it, and again, we were not asked to plug all this beyond just saying thanks for sponsoring, but we actually use this platform, is that you can have multiple calendars sort of within one link. So like I use it to book my own podcast recordings with Alan, our producer, and anyone else that's necessary. And I can send a link that combines all of our calendars into one for the amount of time that we need and get it. And it's just very helpful in that way. The only other thing I think is to thank Anna. She posted the site that everyone can visit. So, of course, thank you for joining and talking about Corbey this morning with us. And you can go check it out there, free to the 1st of August. And then just keep following the show on LinkedIn. Check out more Purple Acorn shows. Obviously my show is there, but we've plugged that enough. But there are many other great Purple Acorn shows that you can listen to. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And all those things that we're supposed to say that if you're watching this, to go do, but just need to be reminded every now and then anyway.
Oh, I've got one reminder. I've got one special shout out.
Do it.
In addition to our sponsors, one of the people who make this all possible is my lovely wife. Today is her birthday, right? And I want to shout her out and I want to give her a happy birthday. You can find her. She's the Allie Fink. I'm the Brian Fink. We know where to find her. You can find her. If you're a recruiter, you know how to find her. Like you see her in my comments. And just shout out to Alan for making this show what it is. And how many episodes do we have left before we hit 100? I think that we're right around the corner. I think 100 is September the 1st. So we look forward to being back, Mike and I, with the regular crew and rocking this thing out for episode 100.
Oh, will I be here for episode 100? Do we have breaking news? I hope so. But it is exciting that the show is getting there. It's amazing, right? This consistent of HR talk every week. The people who tune in, thank you, right? Every week the people who come in with comments and ask questions or chime in to tell us the definitions of things and kind of whatever else, all the input, like it's appreciated. That's that community again that we've talked about several times.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. I'll pass it along to Allie. Y'all have a great day. Thank you, Mike, for a great show. Thanks, Alan. We'll see you next week on the HR Morning Show.
Bye.